All right, I want to see how this one works out here. We have heard oral arguments, masterfully done by both sides, on this Bergdahl case. Oh, really? It was good. And whether or not Mr. Bergdahl should in fact be facing the 2 counts that he has been charged with, again, with very stiff penalties. And tonight, RFL's jury, and again, you have a voice at home, but we're going to get an immediate sense here. We go to the control room. The verdict is in, and they have ruled in favor of Jim Kasoris. Look at this, and he even does the fist pump, saying he should not Jimmy that is, but Mr. Bergdahl should not face charges. Mark's first defeat. All right, now here. Yeah, nobody wanted to drop Mark. For two cases involving police officers. And one where these guys can't catch a break, but on the other one where I gotta wonder if there's treatment here that nobody at this table or you at home would get here. Okay, let's get to the first case. And this one is coming out of New York City. Crash on Staten Island and it killed 2 passengers. The driver, he's a Linden, New Jersey police officer who's driving the wrong way on the highway on the way home from a strip club in the middle of the night. Now, this information obviously the officers didn't see at the time, but hours before the crash, the officer posted a photo on Instagram of 3 shot glasses filled with what he identified as Jack Daniel's fire on the house. Now, it was a tragedy, everyone agrees to that, but here's where the consensus ends. Was there special treatment? Instead of testing the driver for alcohol last week when the accident happened, investigators on the scene have now decided, days later, to put out a warrant to test his blood after the fact. And again here, this is a guy who turned out he had 2 DWIs before in his record. Realistically, May I start with you? When an officer comes upon the scene, what can they find out about the driver in real time? I mean, obviously they're doing the life-saving techniques and everything else, but they're in an immediate aftermath of an accident. What can they find out before they have to make a discretionary call as to whether or not to do a breathalyzer or whatever else?
Well, this isn't an ordinary accident. This is an accident where you're heading the wrong way, okay, on the road. You happen to have a fatality, okay, and 2 fatalities. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for signs of intoxication or impairment by some drug or other substance. And when you are going to be dealing with that person, as he or she breathes, you're going to look for the odor of an alcoholic beverage. And presumably that's there. If not, you're going to want to test that person for drugs. So what will happen generally is you'll get a blood order from a court. You contact the district attorney. Normally there's an assistant district attorney present at the scene, somebody who has homicide duty. That person's going to arrive right away, take command of the scene along with the police, make sure that the integrity of that scene is preserved, and you're going to get all of that information. And it's odd even at this point that the hospital presumably would have drawn blood just to determine for treatment purposes. So they must have some blood that was drawn contemporaneously with the treatment, which would have shown what the blood alcohol content was. If the officers had been killed based upon the negligence or malfeasance of someone else, I'm quite sure they would have immediately gotten a blood order and gone from there.
And Mark, I'm sure you guys have handled cases, not the exact same, but like this. 5 days later, to do a blood test, I got to imagine that what's in the bloodstream is going to be harder to come out, right?
Well, it dissipates, and the Supreme Court dealt with this in 2013 in a case called Missouri versus McNeely. Now, you need a warrant. You can't just take it without getting a warrant, but one of the reasons the Supreme Court said the warrant requirement isn't so onerous is that in 2013, when the case was decided, you can get a warrant by email, by text, by phone. You can do it almost instantaneously. So clearly they could have gotten it. There's going to be a bit of a delay just to get them to the hospital to do the draw. You can get the warrant in that interval. It clearly appears to be preferential treatment or the old blue wall in this case.
None of us would
inexplicable. Are you kidding? Inexplicable. Absolutely inexplicable for all the reasons Mayo said. I mean, that's what you're focused on. I mean, driving down the wrong way, and you're a cop.
But here's what
presumably you know the roads. You're a cop in that county.
But here's what I don't get. This was a high-profile case. How does anybody think? You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to say, wait a minute, guy's driving down the wrong way on a highway at 1 in the morning and 2 people are dead. Forget that he's got 2 DWIs to his record and everything else, and he's coming, they can piece together where he was before he went there. How it took till the middle of the week to ask for this, everybody would have been screaming, I would think, what are you doing? When the commanders or somebody said, get his blood now.
It happened
Now-
in Staten Island. We've been there before.
Well, that's why you need independent investigators and independent prosecutors, because you want to give the appearance at a bare minimum that it's above board and that they're not receiving preferential treatment.
You're not getting alcohol, right, Mayo? This is to be for drugs.
Well, at
5
this
days
point,
later.
it would
And
have to
only
be
marijuana,
drugs.
I think cocaine is
Marijuana
gone.
will, up to
But you know,
45
Rich,
days, right?
the good thing here is that it looks like there's plenty of evidence without the blood for the
Oh,
conviction.
you mean the photo that he posted
The
on
photo,
on
and I'm
Instagram?
sure if you go to the strip club, you're going to have 15 people that said they were drinking their shots. So fortunately, whatever happened, if this was a mistake or if this was intentional, it looks like the facts are going to kind of take care of
But you
themselves.
wanna also
But I'm
figure-
naive enough to not, obviously I'm naive enough to think, I didn't think that, you know, it would be this obvious. Like sometimes you get a break or whatever, but when there's a homicide, a double homicide, I didn't think anybody got caught a break then. And at least it seems this way. Who knows? But all right, I want to
But
get
how-
to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but how does an officer maintain the job of 2 previous DWIs?
That's
That's a
another
bigger
question.
issue to me. I mean, at that point, you
No.
would wonder
Or were they convictions? I'm not sure that they were convictions.
if they're
I think,
convictions.
it
If
was
they're
I
not
think one
convictions,
was a
that's
charge.
And to be fair, I
and
don't
one
know.
was a
I know that there was 2 cases, but I don't know how they were
But
adjudicated.
the question is well taken
All right,
for sure.
So, well, the first story is how the cops certainly, at least in this case, seem to get a benefit of the doubt. We go to the flip side where, at least the face, and you guys may disagree with me, in San Francisco, it seems in a case, cops just can't win. Police shot a mentally ill woman who came after them with a knife after she tried to kill her social worker. Now, the woman, she survived after being shot multiple times and now has sued the city, claiming the police had a duty under the Americans with Disabilities Act to consider her mental illness before they resorted to force. The Supreme Court is considering whether the ADA applies. And obviously, I want to connote the two, but you have a very similar circumstance, although with major differences. With the Chamberlain case, where everyone remembers, elderly man, medical alert goes off, so there was a difference between somebody being called to the scene or whatever, police responded, and there was tragedy that ensued. But nonetheless, cops are humans, and if you're going to a scene where someone had already been reportedly assaulted, you're going there and someone's attacking you with a knife, to expect that they're going to have jujitsu or whatever to disarm without force, I think this is part of the reason why there's a growing resentment in law enforcement as to the expectations coming back to reasonableness. It may be an impossible standard
Well,
sometimes.
but every case is unique, so you have to look at the specific facts. Are you talking about Bruce Lee coming at you with a knife, or maybe Bruce Lee being unarmed?
But
maybe,
is that fair, Mayo?
Well, I think
There's
it is.
a knife is a
Let's
knife.
put
You're
it
going to
this
die
way.
whether it's a woman or
When-
if it's Bruce Lee.
Except, Richard, when you're looking at Tamir Rice, who had the toy gun and got shot within 3 seconds,
that's a
him having a
12-year-old
toy.
kid.
But that 12-year-old kid having a toy gun is different than a grown man having the same gun that may appear to be real. So it gives you a different expectation of what's reasonable. Is this woman, or is Eleanor Bumpers, if she has a knife in her hand, a threat to the police if she can't get out of bed? So there are a whole bunch of things we have to look at, and we have to understand that animal control takes bears out of people's yards. Bears have 10 knives that they can use, right, in their claws. They don't get killed. They're sedated, and if you know you're going into that situation, then you come with the personnel that's necessary to effect the desired result.
There's not a bigger fan than me on this, but I know, and I'm going to take up for a second, Mark, the cop sitting at home right now saying, Jesus, you guys just banged us on what happened in Staten Island when some cop off duty got banged up over at a strip joint and decided to ride down the road. Fine, I get that, and maybe he got a pass because he was a cop and they did him a solid. But my God, they're responding to a scene where the woman took a knife to a social worker. We're going there, and now we use force after they came at us with a knife. What do you want
You
from
have
us?
to see the video if there's a video, and if there's a video, that's why you want body cameras.
But
a
you
video
realize,
may,
but now, Mayo, the standard is now, and I find myself defending, and I've been on 99% of the time, you and I are on the same page, but we're now putting the onus that the cops have to prove. From now
I'm not
on,
saying they have to
I wouldn't
prove.
link the two things. These
Yeah.
are totally different scenarios, and here's why. This case is before the United States Supreme Court. It's absolutely staggering that they decided to hear this case, and Justice Scalia voiced all of these concerns.
Well, that was my
at the
question.
oral-
Why?
I don't know why, and I think the case is going to be dismissed as improvidently granted. So let's not count any chickens. I think the police...
No, I'm not saying guilty or not, but I'm saying we're now having a debate with the facts at least that we know in evidence.
Listen, this is a ridiculous case for the U.S. Supreme Court to hear. And if you think about how many petitions are filed each year, 70 are heard, and they chose to hear this one. Now, I agree with Mayo that it's a fact-bound situation. This particular arrest occurred in a home for mentally disturbed people. The San Francisco police had a protocol as to how to deal with these people, and they didn't follow it. It's undisputed. So put that case to trial. They probably should have anticipated that things were going to get a little hairy in the home for the mentally ill. But why this case is before the U.S. Supreme Court?
But take
is
out the
absurd.
jurisdiction. Take out who's hearing it for a moment. I'm just the layperson here, okay? And it definitely seems, it's like bad case makes bad law.
That's right.
Certainly Staten Island, certainly what happened in Missouri. I can point certainly to what happened in Cleveland and a bunch of other places where bad actions by cops, and maybe they're more of a pervasive problem. I think it's fair enough to say there is with some of the video we've seen, South Carolina, et cetera. We got to revisit this. But it seems when they respond, maybe imperfectly, but still, my gosh, it would give me pause if I was a cop tonight.
But you know, Rich, the dirty little secret we have in this country is mental health issues. It's not criminal. They're not treated as normal people walking down the street. And over again, you see where police have to respond to these people, and they're not given the proper training in some cases.
Well,
in some cases, they are giving the training, and they don't.
I mean, they're
follow
not
the
mental
training.
health experts, they're
Well,
cops.
but maybe that's what we're dealing with here. These people have to be dealt with differently.
I gotta hit a break here, but before we go to our commercial break, I want to share a photo of the day. And if you saw this, little after 3 this afternoon, explosion in a building on the East Village in Manhattan, quickly engulfing a neighborhood building in flames. At least a dozen people injured. Police say both buildings were having construction work done, and Con Ed had been at the site all day. Too early yet to determine what caused the scene.
Right around my house. This is where it is.
And if you saw the flames today, it was honestly a sight to behold. All right, we come back. The debate over the plates. Yes, a group in Texas exactly wants to put Confederate flags on license plates. And while it's easy to dismiss it, the question then comes down to, well, who decides and whose plate is it? We're going to get into that after this.